Yes, 3 decapitated. The quadruple homicide in Long Island, that was horrible, absolutely. And there are other incidents of, in DC and in Boston of homicides. Yes, absolutely. Each one of those are equally horrible. But those get. I am a fluent Spanish speaker. Was considered a level 3 Spanish speaker, which is more than typical. And I was put on a counter. Which is, I said, okay, listen, the bureau needs, and I say I was going to go with the bureau needs, and they put me on a CT unit.
Well, did they have you looking at them trying to bring in guys through the border in Mexico or something?
No, I was working. So it was just, hey, we need, So they didn't, they didn't look at it. I mean, and again, I wasn't part of the decision making. They just said we need a person here, but they didn't look at it. Okay, let's put this guy on, the gang unit because we need a Spanish speaker over there. Let's put it. For me, it wasn't, what I was utilized for. So I had to cut my teeth and earn my way. And then finally, once I had earned enough time, I was able to say, I'd like to go over there. I want to work. I want to speak Spanish. I want to use this for my ability. And I was transferred over finally to the gang unit in 2012.
So, because you made this distinction a few minutes ago about cartels and then gangs from South America. But maybe this is way too much of a simplified way of me looking at it. But obviously the cartels are pumping the most and the most organized at that level, and they're like the suppliers, if you will.
Yep.
But the way I've always thought of it is a lot of these gangs, they're making their businesses where part of their business is also doing the same thing, even if it's getting supplied by those very same people.
Yes.
So why were they even separated? Like, I would think that would all be under, not to say like every investigator is working on all of them together, but I would think that would be under the same umbrella, but it sounds like it wasn't.
No, so in Newark, and I think in most divisions, in New York, FBI Newark, they all have the same construction where there's one group, which is the organized crime, OCDF, Organized Crime Enforcement Task Force. They go after cartels, they go after the large scale dealers. I mean, getting 1 kilo of coke is, small potatoes compared to what they really want to get. They want to get 5-10 kilos here. 5-10 kilos down in Texas, that's small potatoes to them. Down in Texas, they're, I talked to FBI agents down there, like, 5 kilos is, that's lightweight compared to what we normally try and get.
Yeah, Texas A&M's a good time. Yeah.
Right. So, the other squad is the gang unit, and they're going after Bloods, Crips, and that's where it is the MS-13, the Trinitarios. What is amazing to me is, I chased MS-13 most of my career, but what I found here in New York, New Jersey, you don't see these. You see the Trinitarios, which is a Dominican gang. You see them in Florida and New York, New Jersey. They're huge here. It's originating out of the city. Is that they are much worse to this country than MS-13 by far.
All right. On what basis?
Here's why.
Interesting.
MS-13 may, get the flashy violence and, butchering, but Trinitarios, they're smart. They stay under the radar and conduct the criminal activity, sell drugs, do the scams, do the grandma scam. They're scamming people out of thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. So they're doing more damage to our community by doing all these things than MS-13 does. MS-13 is not organized to have a structured, okay, we're going to do, organized scams and grandma scam. So for me, Trinitarios are much more dangerous. Financially.
But barbarically, what would you still say the same thing?
Barbarically, yes. MS-13 is no.
Right.
Yeah, because the Trinis don't do that. I mean, they're your traditional gang but they're transnational because they get a lot of their communications from the DR.
I don't want to de-emphasize those types of crimes and stuff because that's horrible, and obviously, it sounds like they were unfortunately really good at it. But don't communities get way more up in arms when they see like 3 decapitated heads in the neighborhood versus like 3 grandmas that got scammed?
Of course. But why? Because it's in the media. If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
If it bleeds, it leads. I mean, how many tens of thousands of dollars are getting stolen and how many drugs are being sold to our kids, and those kids are going ODing or things like that, and that never gets any publicity. Yeah. So people get up in arms based upon what is put in front of them by the media. Yes, 3 decapitated. The quadruple homicide in Long Island, that was horrible. Absolutely. And there are other incidents of, in DC and in Boston of homicides. Yes, absolutely. Each one of those are equally horrible, but those get media coverage.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of the crimes that people don't even know about because a lot of these elderly people are getting scammed out of $10, $20, $40, $50,000 and they're never even reporting it.
What's like let's start with the Trinitarios.
Mhm.
What's their organization structure? Like we think about the Italian mob, people could say, well, they got a family, they got a boss, they got an
Right.
underboss, a consigliere, some capos, whatever. You know, how do they work here in the U.S. and how much of that power structure reports directly back to country of origin as well?
Well, the country of origin is the DR.
Yep.
And I spent, maybe a year really, investigating them. So we really didn't get into the nitty gritty, dirty, get my hands dirty on them. So that would be a little bit difficult. I know that they have a lot of command and control structure and communications with the DR. They get a lot of the scams come out of the DR. They'll make the calls, and then once they have a hook here in New Jersey, they'll call New York, and then New York will task somebody in New Jersey. So there is a triangle communication.
Got it.
So the Trinis here in New York City, they're the big dogs. New Jersey is a close second.
Damn it.
And
We're behind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're the redheaded stepchildren of everything in Jersey.
Don't do that.
I love it.
Don't do that.
I love being the redheaded stepchild.
Just because you don't live here anymore doesn't mean you can make fun of us. We're the alphas here.
There's 3 things I miss out of Jersey. The food is the pizza and bagels and Dunkin' Donuts, D&D.
You don't have Dunkin' Donuts
There's
in Montana?
no Dunkin' Donuts.
That's a crime.
It's absolutely a crime. I've been trying to find out how to franchise and open some D&D up in Bozeman. But
they don't have a big Indian population there? So where's the Dunkin' Donuts then?
Wrong Indian population. Wrong Indian.
No, I'm talking about the Indian, like the actual Indian population, not the Native American population.
That's what I'm saying. No,
we call them the wrong thing.
Nothing.
That's not
There's
what they're called.
There's 2 communities up there. Huge Hispanic community.
Yeah.
Huge Hispanic community because, and this goes back to what I was talking about, Sinaloa Cartel, CJNG, and Tren de Aragua, TDA, they're blossoming up in Montana.
In Montana?
In Montana.
Have you come across them?
Construction.
Yeah?
Yes.
Do you tell them what's up?
No. I stay away from them. But I've seen them, and because I know what to look for. I know how like certain vehicles and how they drive around town. So, but here's the thing is I know how to spot them. The problem in Montana is this. There's so much construction going on that a lot of the migrants over the last 4 years, those 15, 16 million people that came across the border, a lot of them went up to Montana for the construction. And when you get a gang like Trinis, MS-13, or Tren de Aragua, TDA, they'll go where there's communities. And there's 3 communities up in Montana. You have you have Hondurans, Venezuelans, and Mexicans. Those are the 3 big Hispanic communities. And there's a huge Hispanic community up in Montana because of the construction. So comes up behind them is TDA. CJNG and Sinaloa are there because, hey, listen, there's profit to be made. And it's the northern border. So I have a feeling that there's a lot of product coming down from Canada.
Yes. I had Kat Schultz here. She was talking about that. She's been to some of their places in Canada.
Yeah. And the fact of Justin Trudeau saying, well, less than 1%, listen, that's what you think. Okay, that's what you think because that's what was caught. I think there's a lot more coming across the border. And now with such a strong front at the southern border, I think a lot of them are going to shift. Listen, crime is like a river. It's going to flow no matter what. Even if it's you put up a wall, that river's going to go in other directions. And it's going through Canada right now. And CJNG and Sinaloa are up there. And the problem is this. And I've been working with people and talking to them and saying, listen, there's 3 things that you need to properly investigate and to dismantle a criminal organization, Hispanic criminal organization. And yes, I'm all for the ICE raids, but that's not taking care of the problem. You're just taking care of certain individuals. To get into the root of an organization, you need 3 things. A Hispanic organization is 1, you need a Spanish-speaking investigator. You can't have 2 and 3 without number 1. Number 1 has to be a Spanish-speaking investigator. You're never going to flip a source. You're never going to talk to somebody from the community, and you're never going to have someone trust you to say, an informant, and say, okay, without being able to speak their language. It's never going to happen. And on top of it, sitting across from somebody you've just arrested, you're never going to get them to flip when you're talking through a translator. Not going to happen. Right. I've had it. I've done it. It never works.
Yeah.
So number one. Number two, you got to have an investigator who knows the crew, knows how they work, their structure. You don't need to know everything about them, but you need to know, hey, in MS-13, it's called a click. You have the first word, the second word, and how it's built. You have a program manager that's down in Mexico, the East Coast program.
Program manager. That's like official.
Correct. So they have a program manager who deals with, so for example, New Jersey falls under the East Coast program. I don't know what it is now, but I knew that during my time from 2015 to 2023, it was called the East, and before 15, but it was called, New Jersey fell under the East Coast program. New Jersey, Massachusetts, North Carolina, they all fell under a command structure.
They keep this in like an Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Come on.
No, it's all very structured. MS-13, as crazy as a street gang as they were, they were very detailed and keeping things. And you did not do something without asking for permission. And you had to, if you wanted to commit a homicide, you had to ask permission. You had to go up the chain of command. So you have to have somebody who understands how to work an investigation. And working important here is a RICO, a racketeering case.
Yes.
They have to know how to put together a RICO case.
How do you do that from the bottom up? Because we always hear this thrown around. Obviously, we know it's Ben and G. Robert Blakey to go after the Italian mob, and it can get to the boss or whatever. But if you're starting day one and you're like, we're not going to get to the top guy, the only way we can do this is RICO, where do you start?
You find a loose thread. Find a loose thread and you start pulling on it. So you find the crime. So, and I'll use an example of a RICO case we did here in New Jersey. I think it was 2015. In June of 2015, there was a homicide right up the street here in Union City.
Oh, no.
It was a young man who was shot in the head. And we had an individual who provided us information about this, and we started looking into it. So it literally is starting to pick apart at the investigation, looking at the entirety of it. And, whether it be the homicide. Now, RICO is, for those who may not know, you have to prove that you've committed a crime for the good of the organization.
Right.
The good of the organization. And you have to show two predicate acts. So in other words, you have to have committed two different acts for the good of the organization, not just for the good of you. If you're walking down the street and you randomly shoot somebody because you wanted their Walkman, that's not for the good of the group. But if that shooting was to get yourself a tattoo, that's for the good of the group, because you're showing your strength of MS-13 or TDA. So that could be a racketeering act. So you have to show proof, and it literally is finding someone who's willing to talk and then flip, and that's just interviews and talking and working with the U.S. Attorney's Office and getting the information together. So in 2015 was a homicide. We did not do a superseding indictment until 2018.
Well, it takes a long time to build this stuff,
It takes
right?
a long time to gather evidence, because the U.S. Attorney's Office is different from states and locals. I love the states and locals. I love working with them. But from the U.S. Attorney's side is they're not going to indict until they have a rock solid case. And they're saying, hey, we've got enough to go to trial right now, this day, when we're going to indict.
So we can win.
And we're not going to go indict until we have every T crossed, every I dotted. And that's, I worked with some great people at the U.S. Attorney's Office here in DNJ in New Jersey. So it's making sure everything is done right. All the evidence is logged, is boom, 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 boom. And that's why I think the percentage is like 89% of federal cases never see a day in court. Because when it's presented to the defendants, they're like, ooh, it's pretty overwhelming. And they'll take a plea.
Right.
They'll take a plea.
Yeah, it's like 97, 98% conviction rate.
Right.
Which I have some mixed feelings on some of that, but yeah.
But a lot of these guys, so in racketeering, if you commit murder in the aid of racketeering, there's only one sentence. It's mandatory life. Mandatory life. If you're convicted in court, in trial. So a lot of plea deals for people that are facing, murder RICO is 25, 30 years. So they're looking at, they're like, well, screw it. Let me go to trial. So, and then they end up losing. So we did a trial in 2016 for Plainfield, New Jersey. We took 8 individuals of MS-13 in Plainfield to court. All of them were convicted.
Of murder.
I believe 5 out of the 8 were part of murder. So the 5 out of the 8 got mandatory life. In 2021, I went on Union City, MS-13, and 3 of them went to trial. All 3 were convicted. So they're awaiting sentencing, I believe, right now, even for a 2021 trial. It just takes because of COVID. It just backed up everything. So they're sitting in jail. They were convicted though. So, you know, it takes time. So you need to have an agent who understands how to do RICO and how to put together the 1,000 piece jigsaw puzzle. Yeah. And the last piece is you have to have these three. The last piece is the Department of Justice, the U.S. Attorney's Office. You have to have a USA that's willing to put in the time to saying, hey, I'll be in this for the next 2 to 3 years. And if I'm not here, the office is supporting this, the U.S. Attorney. The problem here is one of the problems with the way life is now, and I had this problem at the Bureau, and as far as the DOJ is too, is that a lot of people, when they get to that level, they don't care about the case anymore. They care about the promotion. That's right. So they want the short hits. They want to be able to do the stats. Hey, I did 20 arrests, 20 others, because they've got to be like,
win
hey,
on a Tuesday in November.
Exactly.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.